Elle est apparue entravée par des chaînes lors de son procès. Ilaria Salis.
Cette enseignante de 40 ans, originaire de Monza en Italie, a passé 15 mois en prison après avoir été accusée d'avoir attaqué des manifestants néo-nazis à Budapest en février 2000.
I was full of spots from bites of bed bugs. We were also full of beetles inside the cell. I thought I would have not survived.
Madame Salis a tabassé des gens avec des barres de fer dans les rues de Budapest. Et voilà qu'elle nous fait la leçon sur l'état de droit. C'est absurde, non ?
This is a politically motivated trial. Orban's government is carrying over this trial, fight against anti-fascists.
La Hongrie de Viktor Orban vient de classer l'idéologie Antifa comme organisation terroriste, quelques jours seulement après Donald Trump. Il y a quelques mois, sur Street Press, on a sorti une grande enquête vidéo sur ce qu'on appelle l'affaire de Budapest.
C'est une affaire politique qui secoue l'Europe. Des milliers de néo-nazis qui défilent dans une capitale européenne.
C'est un vrai délire, quoi.
Des militants antifascistes qui les attaquent à coups de marteau.
En 2023, après une série d'attaques contre des néo-nazis à Budapest, le gouvernement hongrois s'est lancé dans une chasse aux militants antifascistes dans toute l'Europe. Ilaria Salis est l'une des militantes ciblées par Viktor Orban. Dans cette vidéo, vous allez entendre le témoignage de cette professeure italienne. Elle a passé plusieurs mois dans une prison hongroise avant d'être élue députée au Parlement européen.
I was a teacher and I was teaching in a high school near Milano. Since I was pretty young, I was involved in social struggles and social movements in Italy. I was part of movements for housing and movement against TAV.
En italien, le TAV, c'est le TGV. Ils ne veulent pas de cette ligne Lyon-Turin et l'ont montré une énième fois.
I was also in anti-fascist struggles. That was the reason why I traveled to Budapest in 2023, because I wanted to take part to the demonstrations against the Day of Honor, that is a Nazi demonstration that gathers Nazis from all over Europe.
Chaque février, en Hongrie, l'extrême droite rend hommage aux combattants hongrois et leurs alliés nazis défaits face à l'armée rouge en 1944 lors du siège de Budapest. Une marche annuelle est organisée par des mouvements ouvertement néo-nazis. En 2023, une contre-manifestation antifasciste s'y est opposée, entraînant des affrontements entre les deux camps.
Entre les 9 et 11 février, 5 attaques contre des militants d'extrême droite ont été documentées dans la ville. Les autorités hongroises lancent ce qu'elles appellent une chasse à l'homme contre les militants Antifa. La police communique à grand renfort d'images et diffuse les vidéos de l'interpellation de 3 personnes à bord d'un taxi. Elle montre avoir retrouvé sur eux un marteau, du gaz lacrymogène, une matraque télescopique et des gants.
I was taken off from this taxi, a policewoman on a van where she searched on me and she didn't find anything on me. Then I was taken back to the taxi. A policeman put inside opened my bag. I had my bag here around my neck because I was handcuffed, so I could not have any reaction. He put in my bag a hat and this stick, this strange stick. I was so astonished that I was not, and frightened that I was not able to say a word when this happened, because I was like this, and what's going on? Who are these people? And it was such a strange situation. They said that the accusations were taking part in 2 aggressions against the neo-Nazis, 2 aggressions that happened in the days before. For one of the facts of which I was accused, I was not even in Hungary, and I could also prove this to the judge because I had my travel tickets. Well, I was quite astonished, but I could not even understand fully because they spoke only Hungarian. A translator arrived, but she didn't speak good Italian, so I could understand only some pieces of the accusation. The judge didn't set me free, and he decided to send me to prison Firstly, he said for 1 month, and I didn't understand that 1 month could be renewed for another several months. The accusations became heavier and heavier until I was accused of crimes that in Hungary can be punished with 24 years of hard prison. I can say that I went to Budapest to take part in the anti-fascist demonstrations. I don't want in this moment to add further information because anything that I can say, I think that Hungarian judges or Hungarian government could decide to use it against me or against other people. So yes, It was Gyorsko Ciuca prison. That is the only prison in Budapest for women where are kept women that are in pre-trial detention, as I was. It was my first time in prison. It was very hard. When you arrive, I think they are supposed to give you a package with toilet paper and soap and these kind of things for hygienic issues, but I don't know why they didn't give to me this packet. I was in a cell alone, so nobody could help me, giving me some of these things, and so I was actually left without these things for more than 1 week. We had to stay closed in the cell the whole day. Only for 1 hour we were allowed to go to the fresh air, but it didn't happen every day because sometimes the police forgot to take us down, and so you had to stay closed in a cell for 2 days or 3 days without going out. I was full of spots from bites of bed bugs during the night. I suppose they used to bite me a lot. We were also full of beetles inside the cell, and we had mice inside, not inside the cell fortunately, but in the yard. They changed me whenever they wanted. They came and they say, okay, pack up, pack everything. I changed 12 cells, I think, because then during the first month it was a very stressful thing. I thought I would have not survived. I don't think they're human, it's human conditions. The trial started. I was taken towards the judge with handcuffs and with a leash and with chains also at my feet. I felt well because I saw a lot of people coming from Italy, and this gave me a lot of strength. It's very important when you are in prison you can never see anybody, and so it was very important for me. When I see me in chains, I still feel badly. It's still humiliating, and it makes me suffer still now when I see these pictures. These images created a bigger solidarity around my case. Ilaria, libera! Ilaria, libera! My case became quite interesting from a mediatic and also political point of view in Italy.
Di cui ho parlato col primo ministro ungherese per garantire che ai nostri connazionali venga ovviamente riservato un trattamento di dignità, di rispetto, un giusto processo.
It was a trial with thousands of pages of investigation, and these pages were not translated. I could not understand everything that was going on, and it was also very hard for me to defend myself in that situation.
Quell'accusa della procura ungherese, per cui rischia fino a 24 anni. Avrebbe aggredito 1 anno fa 2 partecipanti a un raduno neonazista a Budapest. Loro, guariti in pochi giorni, non hanno mai sporto denuncia. Lo ricorda la difesa e ripete, nessuna prova. Nel video dell'attacco diffuso dall'accusa Salis non è riconoscibile, infondata.
Deeply I knew that this trial could not be a fair trial, an equal trial, and so Anything I could do, anything that my lawyer could say would have not been even considered by the judge that was only considering what the public prosecutor was saying. The statements that were made by the Hungarian officials, members of the government, they said that I was guilty and I deserved a very severe punishment. It's supposed to be the judge and not the government who says if somebody is guilty or not. I think that this is a political motivated trial and that Orban's government is carrying over this trial fight against anti-fascists because it brings him votes in Hungary. While I was in prison, the Italian left-wing parties, it was more the one who suggested the election. Finally, I decided, yes, to accept to be candidated with Alleanza Verdi e Sinistra. I could not do myself the campaign. I was able to make an interview with an Italian newspaper that sent me the written questions and I replied by writing. The 2 final weeks of the campaign, actually I was in house detention, so I could communicate with Italy.
Un enorme ringraziamento perché siete stati la mia forza in questi mesi.
Everything went well because I was finally elected. After the election, I was set free.
Ciao Ilaria, come stai?
At the moment, the trial for me is suspended and it will restart in case my immunity is revoked. If the immunity is revoked, probably would be an arrest warrant against me. So I don't know, I would be arrested in Italy or in France or in Belgium or wherever I will be in Europe in that moment, and then the country where I would be arrested would have to decide whether to give the extradition and give me to Hungary or not.
Giuseppe Alim Vasili, nome sconosciuto. 1 minuto non è sufficiente per nominare tutte le persone che nel 2024 si sono tolte la vita nelle carceri italiane.
I'm quite close to the prisoners because of my stories, so I'm visiting several prisons in Italy. Somehow I'm trying with other means to fight for the same things as before when I was involved in politics, but outside institutions or the parliament.
Voilà, c'est la fin de cette vidéo. Merci de l'avoir regardé jusqu'au bout. Cette interview, c'est le fruit d'une collaboration avec Vidi News. C'est un média indépendant italien avec qui Street Press collabore depuis plusieurs années au sein du réseau Sfera. Nous, on va continuer à s'intéresser à cette affaire-là. Alors n'oubliez pas de vous abonner pour ne pas louper nos prochaines vidéos.